Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started here in a minute or two. We are just going to let all of our attendees, all 300 of you that have registered today. So we're just going to give you a minute to filter in, and then we're going to get started with our exciting presentation. Wow, we're already at 129. This is great. Hope everybody is doing okay. Is it Friday yet? Oh, Thursday. Dang it. Almost there. All right. The numbers slowing down there a little bit, so I will get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Staff and Faculty Town Hall event for What's Next, the SFU Strategy, the new and approved, not improved, approved. Thank you for joining us today on Zoom. My name is Janet. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of SFU Public Square. I once again have the pleasure of being your moderator for one of these fantastic sessions. I'm speaking to you today from the traditional and unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We're again hosting the session online to include as many folks as possible. And I know there's a lot going on in the province right now. For those of you that are spring breaking with your young kids and joining us from wherever you may be, thank you for that and for participating while you're also engaging in child care. We are recording the session today so we can share it back with those that were not able to join us. It'll be posted shortly in the SFU faculty and staff dashboard webpage, and we'll have a link for you later on. The session again is closed captioned. If you'd like to see the subtitles, press the caption button below in the control bar of your Zoom window and click show captions. If you're joining not by a phone or an iPad, the functionality there should also work for you. So the purpose of today is to share an overview of what's next, the SFU strategy. We've got an amazing collection of SFU leaders here today. Our presenters to kick things off are SFU President Joy Johnson and Vice President Finance and Administration, Martin Pachurko. We have many of our priority area co-leads in attendance today, except for a couple that weren't able to make it because of conflicts. Joy's going to introduce these folks during her presentation, and then we're going to have a few minutes for a few of them to share a little bit about themselves and maybe perhaps a bit about the work to come. So our agenda for today is first we will hear about the process that went into the creation of What's Next from Martin. Then we're going to hear from Joy, who's going to provide a brief overview of the strategy itself before introducing the co-leads and inviting any of their reflections. Once the presentation is finished, we'll spend the rest of our time together in conversation, having our leaders hear from you and answering your questions. We're going to end promptly at 4 o'clock. So as we've done before, respective of the fact that folks like to participate in different ways, there'll be 3 different ways for you to ask your question. You can put your hand up using the raised hand function. We will take your questions via chat, but ideally also not chat, put it in the Q&A. That way we can capture them and we can keep them. So it's great if we could do it that way, but we will take them from chat as well. So I'd also like to mention that we're conducting today with the expectation that we all abide by some community guidelines. Our team at SFU Public Square did create these a little while ago, but really drawing heavily upon the work of others, and want to acknowledge the others of like the WAS Center for Dialogue, community, some other folks. I'm not going to read the guidelines out to you, but they'll be posted in the chat for your reference. You've likely seen them before. And ultimately, we're just asking you to engage in self-care, take a break, be mindful of the amount of space and time you might be taking. Maybe you have more than one question, but maybe we just have one question from you today, unless there's not a lot of questions. And then just let's engage in some respectful communication and dialogue today. We're just here to keep everybody safe and encourage an honest, socially accountable dialogue. So thank you for respecting those guidelines, and we're really looking forward to our conversation. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Martin. Martin, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Janet. It's great to be here, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to have you all with us to talk about the new SFU strategy. I'm co-sponsoring its implementation along with our Provost and Vice President Academic Pro Tem, Wade Parkhouse, who can't join us today, unfortunately. So I'm glad to be here to kick us off by giving us just a brief overview of how we got here. You may remember that early last year, we gathered broad input from the community in a variety of ways, including an online discussion platform and our SFU What's Next survey. We heard lots of meaningful thoughts from faculty, staff, partners, employers, and alumni. After that, we held targeted roundtable conversations with groups and faculties, departments, and units across the university, and of course, alumni and partners to hone in on what we'd learned so far. We also made it a priority to engage with students during our month of welcome in September and make sure that we added their voices to the conversation. If you haven't already seen them, you can find reports from all the engagement activities on our website. Through this process, we heard a lot of consistent feedback. We felt that we had been given clear direction and got to work developing a strategy that would be responsive to the community. We shared this draft strategy at town halls for students, faculty, and staff last November to gather even more feedback. And last, this January, the final strategy was approved by Senate and the Board of Governors. And that brings us to the present day. SFU, What's Next, has become SFU, What's Next, the SFU Strategy. I'm super excited by what this has shaped into. With all the input from our communities, it's turned into something that we truly feel speaks to who we are and where we want to go at SFU. So in just a moment, Joy will speak to the strategy itself. But for now, we have a brief video to lead us in. Let's play that video now.
Is it just me that can't hear it, Kevin? We might want to, Martin can't hear it. Yeah. We might need to restart the video with audio team. I thought I'd gone deaf there for a minute. It's like, did I turn my audio off?
And that's such a nice picture of me, isn't it, Janet?
Yeah. Joy, would you mind, Joy? Could you just do a quick voiceover? If we just roll it back from the beginning, could you just do the voiceover for us?
I wish I could. Oh, well. We're going to try and do a restart. And if we can't, maybe we'll cue it toward the end. Janet, what do you think?
Absolutely right. Let's give it one more shot. And if not, we can just do it, Joy, when you're done your presentation.
Fantastic.
Maybe what we'll do, Joy, we'll let these folks figure out if whoever's sharing screen maybe wants to stop sharing unless Joy, were there PowerPoints for you?
Yeah, there are, but I'm going to get started, and I've got a great tech team behind the scenes who can help us out. And so I'll start, and they'll catch me up as we go on. So first of all, let me say, oh, there's that picture again. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Martin, for just outlining the process for all of us. And I want to thank everyone who participated in What's Next. It really helped to have a strong engagement, and it was really, really valuable for me and for the executive team and the leadership team at the university to hear from all of you. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the efforts of our strategic planning advisory group. Some of you are in the Zoom room today, and I really want to thank you for the work you did. Your perspective and advice and experience really were crucial to helping us create What's Next, the SFU strategy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy, starting with SFU's new vision. Our vision, and that is who we aspire to be, is a leading research university advancing an inclusive and sustainable future. And I really love this vision because it touches on so many aspects of who we are at SFU. We're a research university and an excellent one. SFU is currently ranks number 13 in Canada, according to the QS rankings. But we also have a reputation for being a world-class university with strengths in teaching, as well as research and community engagement. But we have ambitions to reach higher, and I know that we can do that collectively. And we care about shaping society and the world for a better, and specifically a better future that includes the areas of inclusion and sustainability. So let me move on to our purpose. Our purpose and why we come to work in the morning is to create and connect knowledge, learning, and community for deeper understanding and meaningful impact. Again, this is a statement that just feels like SFU. We connect knowledge and community, we ask questions and seek to understand the answers, and we want our work here to have an impact on the world. Moving on to our values which guide us as individuals and as an institution are academic thinking and critical freedom. Academic freedom and critical thinking. Boy, they have it wrong on the slide. Look at me noticing that. Excellence and responsibility, respect and reciprocity, equity and belonging, engagement and openness, resilience and sustainability, and innovation and adaptability. In the consultation period, I do want to say that we heard a lot about the importance of academic freedom and why it is so important to our community, which is why you'll see it listed here first. In addition, we've outlined a number of priorities for the university, and we've outlined 4 areas that will form our framework for action, and each is going to be supported by actions and initiatives that will propel us forward. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the priorities. We will uphold truth and reconciliation by improving the support, mentorship, and recruitment of Indigenous students, by strengthening Indigenous faculty and staff attraction and retention, and by aligning our priorities and our approach through a new Indigenous strategic plan. We will engage in global challenges by cultivating a thriving research and teaching environment, enabling and valuing interdisciplinary and diverse forms of scholarship, and investing in world-class faculty and infrastructure. We will make a difference for BC by expanding experiential education, lifelong learning, and credential models, establishing a socially accountable medical school, and facilitating evidence-informed public dialogue. And we will transform the SFU experience by meeting the changing needs of learners through curriculum and service enhancements, integrating progressive people practices, optimizing processes, technology, and facilities to support people at SFU and propel the academic mandate. As has been mentioned, co-leads have been appointed for each priority, who are in the process of establishing pan-university working groups. And these working groups are going to establish the metrics for success and identify annual initiatives that are already going on in support of this strategy. Co-leads, as I mentioned your names, I'm going to ask you to just give us a little bit of a wave. And they include myself and Chris Stockton-Lewis for upholding truth and reconciliation. Chris is the Director of Indigenous Initiatives and Reconciliation, who unfortunately can't be here today. Engaging in global challenges is being co-led by Dugan O'Neill, Vice President, Research and International, and Ujjwal Kayende, our Dean of the Beatty School of Business. Making a difference for BC is being co-led by Joanne Curry, our Vice President, External Relations, and Kevin Oldknow, Senior Advisor, Academic Planning, Office of the Provost, and Vice President, Academic. And transforming the SFU experience is being co-led by Yabom Gilpin Jackson, Vice President, People, Equity, and Inclusion, and Romana Kanhamani, Vice Provost and Associate Vice President, Students and International. So I just want to check in with our co-leads. If any of you would like to just introduce yourselves briefly and share a little bit about your priority and some of the exciting work we have coming up, I'm going to ask you to go ahead. Maybe I'll first check in with you, Dugan.
Sure. Thanks, Joy. So yeah, Ujjwal and I are leading the team that will be talking about engaging in global challenges. And of course, people at SFU are already engaging in global challenges. This is not us starting something new. It's us trying to gather the stories, the information about all the great work that's happening. And global challenges, there's a whole bunch of different ways to define them. We've had a lot of discussions where people have brought up the UN Sustainable Development Goals as one framework to look at, but there's all sorts of different challenges that are being tackled across SFU. I think that after we're done trying to gather all of the great stories of the things that are already happening at SFU, then maybe we'll find some great cross connections between some of that work and help facilitate it moving forward. So global challenges are, it's all over my job title as Vice President Research and International, and really looking forward to working on it over the next year or more.
Thank you so much, Dugan. Joanne, why don't you tell us a little bit about making a difference for BC?
Great. Well, Kevin and Aldo and I had our very first meeting as co-leads today, and we're so excited about moving this work forward. Following on Dugan's comments, SFU has made a tremendous difference for BC in its 58 years, and probably the biggest is graduating over 180,000 students, and the vast majority living in British Columbia, and so much research and knowledge mobilization. So we're excited about to begin the work. We have 3 very powerful initiative areas already developed, but we know there's lots of feedback and ideas of the what's next process, and many more to come. So looking forward to working with the university community and also our communities to move this work forward.
Thank you so much. And Romana, checking in with you. I know you and your BOEM are leading enhancing the SFU experience, transforming the SFU experience.
That's right. Thank you. And I'm so pleased that I have this opportunity to work with you, BOEM, on this, what is a really exciting area. And a lot of work is actually already underway, which is great. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the work that's happening in your BOEM's portfolio to develop a people plan for the university. So that work is underway, and you may have already attended the town hall on that recently. There's a lot of work happening in the student experience space over the last few years, but right now we've had this fantastic engagement with students, staff, academic units on how we can strengthen the academic advising services at the university. And so that is underway, and hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have more to say about that. We're also paying a lot of attention to what's happening in the classroom in terms of classroom technology and improvements in that space, because we've been hearing a lot of need to support instructors. And so those are some highlights, more to come. Really excited to be doing the work with my colleagues and working with students and staff on this.
Thank you so much. And maybe I'll just say a few words about upholding truth and reconciliation. It was really clear in the feedback we got from the community that this remains a very high priority for all of us. And if you haven't been up on Burnaby Mountain for a while, you'll see that we are breaking ground. We're starting to see the emergence of a First Peoples Gathering House. We're very excited about that. But with the leadership of Chris Lewis, we're going to also be developing a new Indigenous strategic plan to really set the course. But we really are going to also focus on pathways to really enhance and support Indigenous students to come to Simon Fraser University. Those are just a few examples. There's so much to be done in this space, but really, really excited about what we're doing, but also where we can go. So before I open it up for questions, I just have a few more remarks that I do want to make, and we'll see at the end of those remarks if the video is going to work. But really what I want to say is that the strategy, to say a few words about how the strategy is going to affect the day-to-day work of our faculty and of our staff. And I want to be clear, the idea behind the strategy is really to make your jobs a little bit easier by helping us remain focused and to think about ways we can all move forward together. So moving forward, myself and the executive team are going to be using this strategy as a decision-making tool to really evaluate current and proposed activities and to measure them against the identified priorities that we've established. And to use as an opportunity to say no. And this is something we've always been good at, but we really, I think it is a time for us to be focused and to think about how we can move these areas forward. And I hope that you can help us with that and do the same. The 4 priorities laid out in the strategy are going to help ensure that we're all pulling in the same direction, creating opportunities for collaboration across the university as we work towards a common set of goals. And the best part, most of it is work that we are already doing. I know you're thinking about how to uphold truth and reconciliation in your day-to-day work. I know that you're thinking about how to create a difference in the communities we serve in British Columbia, about how your work is addressing global challenges like climate change and health equity. And I know you're thinking about how we can make SFU a better place to work, learn, and research. The strategy is not about adding more work to your plate. It's about doubling down on the meaningful work you're already doing, and hopefully saying no to everything else. I'm trying to be clear about this whenever I talk about the strategy, and especially when I talk about it with leaders at SFU. And in fact, we're in the process of organizing a training session for leaders at SFU that will support them in understanding and implementing the strategy in their faculty, in their department, or their unit. So my hope is that we can all use this strategy to align our efforts and move the university forward together. So that's enough about me. I would love to hear from all of you. I'm going to turn it back to Janet. I'm going to see if that video is ready, and then we'll move into a Q&A. So over to you, Janet.
Great. So yeah, I'm looking to the tech team. If you're ready with the video, you go ahead, share the screen, and let's do it.
Fingers crossed.
We want to hear more of Joy's wonderful voice.
Since our founding, there has always been something special, something different about SFU. Over more than 50 years, we have come into our own as Canada's engaged university. SFU is a university that knows how to meet the moment. We always have been. And right now, we are living through a critical time in history. We face shifting geopolitics, a climate crisis, growing inequity. It's time for us to take our next big step as a university and meet this moment in a way that only SFU can. So, what's next for SFU?
We will create an equitable environment where students feel seen and valued.
We will build a sustainable future through innovative research projects.
We will create a welcoming space for Indigenous students.
We will advance our systems to help the SFU community explore, innovate, and engage with each other.
We will rep the lead everywhere we go.
We will ensure that every student who comes to SFU will have an engaging, welcoming, and meaningful learning experience.
We will train the next generation of healthcare professionals in BC.
We will support teaching and research that builds resilience, advances social justice, and tackles climate change.
We will uphold truth and reconciliation by moving beyond rhetoric into real action.
We will identify and address systemic barriers and advance our SFU equity priorities.
We will work with partners to build the Burnaby Mountain Gondola.
We will bring together diverse voices, stories, and perspectives to increase mutual understanding.
We'll be kind and lift each other up.
We will be a leading research university advancing an inclusive and sustainable future.
We will.
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 We will together. Now we know what's next for SFU. I can't wait to get started.
We did it. I love that video. Except for one thing, I was left on the cutting room floor. I was interviewed and not put into that video. So I'm, noted. So it's time for questions. I'm going to explain the different ways that we can take the questions. I hope you all are thinking about the questions that you'd like to ask to our collection of incredible folks that are here today that are taking on our priority areas and moving the university forward. So just as a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question live, you do your raised hand function, then we'll follow those in order. You can say it with words, not turning on your video, or you can do video and audio. You can go ahead and put your question in the chat if it's just coming to you and you just want to type it out, or you can go ahead and press on the Q&A function and do Q&A, and we'll pop it into the Q&A, and then folks will tell me what the questions are. So we have 25 minutes for questions with you. If not, I'm going to do a little complaining about not being in the video, make everyone uncomfortable. No, I'm not going to do that. So
It's always hard to have the first question, isn't it, Janet?
So I'm going to ask one, maybe I'll ask one, or maybe if there's anyone else from the executive team that's with us here that also would like to offer something or ask a question. But, oh, wait a minute. Oh, darn it. We've got a hand up.
Excellent.
I mean, good that we've got a hand up, but I was going to ask a question, but I'll go there and I am going to ask for, let's see, is it the Q&A or is it, there we go. No. Chat is disabled is what Nicole is saying. So there
there's
is
a question now. Diane Finegood's got a question.
There we go. Diane, I'm going to read Diane's question out if that's okay, Joy, so that everyone else, because I don't think everyone can see the question. So I'll read it out and then we'll go from there. So Diane says, to what extent have we considered how we will learn and improve along the path of implementation? Great question. Can we consider using an Indigenous research paradigm of relational accountability rather than the traditional I think she means transactional accountability? So implementation.
Yeah, I think it's such a good question, Diane. So thank you for that. It's early days, and right now the working groups are being established. And we're trying to think about how we will hold ourselves accountable, how we'll think about kind of outcomes. But I really like what you're asking in that I think we need to interrogate the evaluative methods. That being said, our board hasn't been mentioned, but our board is also really interested in outcomes and how SFU is going to live up to commitments being made through the strategic plan, and they want to support us in that work. So I think there's opportunities for these things to be brought together. But as leading the Upholding Truth and Reconciliation work with Chris Lewis, I'm going to actually bring that question back to him. And if you have ideas about this, we'd be all ears.
Great. There we go. All right. So I think Nicole Manson is ready to ask a question. I think that
actually, it wasn't a question. I was just saying that you had mentioned the chat would be available for us to put stuff in. I was just letting you know that the chat is disabled, so we actually can't put anything in there.
Okay. Did you have a question now that we've got you?
Oh, okay. So there was ASI funding, Aboriginal Strategic Initiative funds, that has now sort of come to its end. What does the university have planned moving forward? Because clearly the need is still there. And, there's ideas going on across campus where Indigenous initiatives and programming could be supported. So what's next?
Yeah, thank you. And that's such a great question, Nicole. Thank you for that. I'm going to answer it since I'm the co-lead right now for this part of the initiative. When we had this is the Aboriginal Strategic Initiative funding, I think there was always a sense that it was kind of one-off funding. And there was always a desire to find ways to create opportunities in the continuing budget to support the work. And that was really what we were pushing to do. And so that's what we're talking about right now at SFU, is to create resources and to be thoughtful about those resources and to be thinking about the gap areas that we need to fund as we move forward. So Chris and I are starting that process, and there will be opportunities to continue to support this work. It might not be in the form of ASI funding per se, but we recognize that to do the work across these areas, we need to find out how to resource them appropriately.
Great. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Chat is open, so flood that chat with your questions if you'd like. In the meantime, we do have some more questions, so I will just go ahead and start reading them off and we can hear responses from folks. So the next question is anonymous. How are we accounting for low international student enrollment and potential for revenue loss and loss of jobs? Other research institutions in BC are going through budget cuts and job loss.
I'm looking at Martin Pachuco there. Maybe Martin, since I don't want to answer every question, but maybe you give it a shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely happy to join. You know, certainly the observations on the astute one, we are challenged on the international student enrollment front, as are most institutions across Canada. Other organizations are making cuts. We're actually taking a multi-pronged approach to it. You know, the cuts is the last choice in our perspective. We're looking at other ways of generating more revenue to replace the revenue that we've lost. We are also aggressively re-engaging on the recruitment front to see whether we can recapture some of the enrollment that we've lost. Certainly, as we look at the cost side of the equation, we've inflicted what I would say is a little bit more regiment around hiring new people on board, stopping where we don't necessarily need to fill positions and trying to take that opportunity as well. So as I say, the cut is the last option. If we have to go down that path, it's going to be very much evidence informed, and we'll certainly take a close look at it before we get there. I think the other thing I would say too is when you look at our competitors and versus SFU, is we come out of the COVID gate with a very strong financial position, and that has benefited us greatly and helped us bridge some of the challenges that we're facing at this moment.
Okay, thank you for that, Martin. And anyone else who's, if they folks want to jump in and respond to anything at any time, please feel free. I'm going to move on to the next question. Another anonymous question. I'm curious why the word teaching is not in the mission statement along with research, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, I think that the term, I'll answer that, and feel free anybody else to join in on this one. You know, when we had feedback from the community, I think that there was a sense that, you know, SFU gets referred to as, quote, a comprehensive university, but we really wanted to, and there's a lot of desire to emphasize the fantastic research that takes place. And I think an assumption that because there are teaching universities, research universities, et cetera, that we wanted to distinguish ourselves as a research university. And then secondly, I think there was an assumption that universities are there for teaching and learning. So there was a sense that that was, you know, embedded there. I will point out though as well, that when you look at our purpose as well, it is about learning and connecting knowledge and learning. So you see that really important element in our purpose, and we need to be purpose driven as a university. We are here for knowledge generation and for learning, and we do need to remain focused on that purpose.
Okay, I will just pausing to see if anybody else want to jump in. I will go ahead and ask the next question. Another anonymous question. How is SFU upholding the community right outside our doors? For example, the Vancouver Harbour Centre campus, who are struggling with systemic injustices and homelessness. We see community members inside SFU's walls. How can we be supportive and help them maintain their dignity?
Joanne?
Yeah, this is such an important question, and I really love the nature of the question. How can we further support? And there's no question all of us have seen huge impacts and in the city core, it's now called, during COVID and then post-COVID. So it's been quite devastating. We are doing activities and dialogues, and for example, SFU Public Square just had one on reducing the stigma of homelessness. So some of that is around public dialogue. But also the president has sent a letter, I think it was on day one of Premier Eby's job, to say we are the largest post-secondary presence in downtown Vancouver. We see the issues. How can we lean into the work more fully, utilizing, you know, our research, our teaching, our education, our dialogue. There's so much that we feel community engaged research. So we are engaging both with the province, and we have an upcoming meeting with the mayor of Vancouver to see what further we can do. So really good question. We're all very concerned about the situation in Vancouver. And I must say some of the situations also occurring in Surrey with homelessness and across BC. But thank you for the question, and we are going to try to make more of a difference in this area in the future.
Great. I feel like I want to call upon Laurie Anderson. I know he's been leading some of those conversations down at the Vancouver campus, but he's not one of our folks today, but I know he's got lots to say on this as well. So we've got a couple questions about implementation. I might just kind of put them together and have folks, if they've got thoughts, to jump in. So the first question is, who will be part of the conversation in the development of the KPIs? So sort of the evaluation and the measurement. And then also, what is the timeline for establishing the pan-university working groups for each one of the priority areas? Who will be invited to join them? Will it be students, staff, faculty? What will that, do we know what any of that will look like, and the timeline?
Yeah, so it's early days, and that's why we want to get out and start to talk to people. And I would say, if you're particularly interested in one of these areas, put your hand up and connect with the co-leads. I also think that, you know, the working groups are going to evolve over time, you know, as the foci change as well. So that's something to think about as we move forward. Adam Brayford is here with us. He's a staff person helping to put the plan together. In terms of kind of the KPIs, that's, you know, part of the work that we really need to be thinking about. There's so many metrics we could utilize across these areas. And I think what we're trying to do is figure out what are the most, I guess, the most impactful transformational indicators that would show that we are moving the dial in these areas. You know, more to come as we move forward. We'll be sharing progress. But as I said, I think there is an opportunity as a community to reach in and to be part. We thought it was important to have co-leads, but they are in the midst. We've had a number of sessions where names are being started to be suggested, and some of you might be contacted over time, but I think you can also vote yourself up a little bit. And if you've got some time and passion for one of these areas and want to help us move it forward, I'd encourage you to do so. And the other thing I would say is that these priorities will also be driven down across the university. And I know, you know, departments, units are also doing work in this area, and we want to hear about that work and lift it up, celebrate it as well.
Great. Thank you for that. All right. So we've got a question from Lupin Battersby, from head of our knowledge mobilization work. Lupin says, as a yes person, I can vouch she is a yes person. I'm wondering what you mean by saying no. Always that's such a tough thing. What are you hoping to limit and or support by this?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Lupin, because I'm a yes person too. And that's sometimes what gets me into trouble, is you get so enthusiastic about so many things that you really lose focus. And, you know, as an example, we had a discussion at our finance committee of the board today, and they were saying, you know, every time you invest in an area, it means you're not investing in other areas as well. And so, you know, I think that what we're really hoping to do is to be very mindful around our resource and budget, to be thinking about how we drive these areas in particular forward, because these are the areas the university community has indicated a passion for. In terms of what that means, in terms of saying no, I can imagine any number of initiatives that might sound very, very attractive. You know, let's go establish a campus in, you know, I don't know, in New Westminster, or let's go and, you know, spend some money, you know, developing, I don't know, a new initiative somewhere else. You know, I think that we have to, while there might be temptation, while people might put money on the table, while there might be a great donor who wants to do something, we need to use a frame and say, no, we need to stay focused. We need to deliver on these 4 areas. And remain true to our purpose, thinking about our mission, thinking about, you know, our purpose as a university. So that might not be very specific for you. I think there's a lot of yeses still to be had, let me tell you, within these areas. But I do think it's a frame we will need to use for decision making.
Great. I have a bit of a follow along raising some tension points here. So speaking of revenue loss and implications on our overall budget within the institution, which we've talked a bit about, it feels like although these strategic initiatives are wonderful and much needed, not a whole lot of support, i.e. hiring and etc., will be provided or available. How is leadership ensuring that workload is not negatively impacted across the board?
Yeah, I don't know if any of my colleagues want to try and answer that. I feel like I'm answering. Yes, Yabon, thank you.
I'm happy to step in alongside on this one, Joy. Thank you for the question. I think what I want to point out is in the transforming the SFU experience, my colleague Rumana mentioned the people plan, and the people plan and the equity compass will work in tandem around supporting staff and faculty experiences. And within the people plan, what we heard very clearly from all of you and anyone that attended the people plan town halls was that a focus area we had put forward on experience and well-being is a priority. So the short answer is yes, we're paying a lot of attention to supporting well-being, which workload is significantly a part of. I think I'll add to what Joy had said earlier to say, we're saying yes to the things that we have heard from you are the priorities we ought to focus on. And so for me, our no's are inherent in that. For me, the what's next is the overall focus document that we've looked at also as we've been thinking about the people plan and the equity compass. And it provides us focus in terms of where we're going to put our time, our energy. And as we think about implementation and resourcing as well, is we focus on areas that advance these priorities. I understand that with strategic priorities, there's also operational excellence. But again, because we'll be looking at experience and well-being, we'll be looking at making sure that our staff are well supported to advance the strategic priorities, to continue with day-to-day operational excellence, and to make sure that everybody is well taken care of as we do that. And it might mean some no's along the way, but that's okay. That's what these documents help us do.
Maybe I could also chime in on that one if I could, Joy. I certainly, as the co-leads were introducing their topics, many of them talked about all the initiatives that we already have underway in support of the various initiatives. And I think that's really important to point out. The other side of the equation is you have to wonder, after we identify all those initiatives that are underway to support the initiatives, what else are we doing that isn't supporting any of them? And perhaps there are some opportunities for turning things off that we've got underway. And we have to look at that as well.
And synergies as well. I mean, what I'm, it's just in terms of advancing truth and reconciliation, there's so much happening at the university across our departments, across our units, and even to try and gather those up and to think about the synergies, to think about ways we can lift them up together and then figure out where the gaps are is really, really helpful for all of us. But by enunciating it as a priority, it really does help us think through and celebrate what we're doing, but also think about where we need to go next.
Okay, great. So we're going to switch gears. We've got another question here. The pandemic showed us huge potential for connecting virtually and the accessibility benefits that this offers for many people. What are the plans there for expanding remote delivery of synchronous teaching to improve accessibility of research and teaching at SFU?
Maybe I'll mention that I'll lean in and I'll see if, Romana or someone else wants to lean in as well here. This has become a matter that Senate has had a lot of discussion about. And obviously Senate is the academic oversight for the university. And we learned a ton during the pandemic about the use of online technologies and how they can be so useful. But I think that what we heard from on the Senate floor is that we have to be thoughtful about it. We have to think about under what circumstances these types of technologies are useful and when they're not. And the other thing, and this also goes to thinking about the SFU experience, we don't necessarily are not as purpose-built for some of these technologies as we need to be in terms of being digitally ready. Our facilities aren't necessarily 100% there. So there's work to be done there. Romana, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to say about in that spot, given,
Yeah, no, just on the topic of, I think that I've lost the question here, but around synchronous teaching, it is something that one of the IT committees that I am involved in is looking at in terms of student and instructor experience and what we need to do to enhance classroom technologies to ensure that some of those things can happen more easily. Because there is interest, obviously, not just on the part of instructors, but also students to have more access to synchronous opportunities. So we need to do some work, though, to get there. But that is our key priority. One of the key priorities out of that group that I'm involved in, and there is some work, the planning underway for that. So I'm excited about that.
Great.
Great. Okay. So Rumana, maybe don't go anywhere because I think the next question is going to be for you as well. So what role will student services play in what's next?
So I'm going to reframe the question just a touch to talk about services and for students instead of student services, because that's certainly an important unit that provides services, but we have many areas of the university that support students and provide services for students. And if you look across the priority areas, there are many priority areas, many goals across the 4 priorities in which the services, the things that happen outside the classroom will be really important. And so I would say it's a bit about what we've already been talking about. It's really taking a look at how do we align our services with the priorities? How do we get focused on the things that matter most to students? And our students have changed a lot. So our services have to change and keep up. So when I look at the various goals, I see lots of opportunities for a bit more cohesion across the university in terms of services and really looking at what students need and how we can deliver that together in a more integrated way.
Great. Thank you for that. The questions are flying in. All right. So the next question is, how will provincial accessibility legislation and the equity compass be part of the What's Next plan?
Over to you, Yvonne.
That's great. Thank you so much for that question. I think to paint the response in 2 ways. One is my connection in as being one of the co-leads for Transform the SFU Experience is specifically about that, representing the people, equity, and inclusion portfolio, and specifically the experience of staff and faculty from the people plan perspective, but also equity considerations overall for all our community through the equity compass. So the co-lead structures were very thoughtful in terms of thinking about the governance connections across the board to many of our other plans, right? So that's one response. The other one is that the What's Next values, so that is the value of equity and belonging that is there as a core value. And I know that was very clearly represented in the engagement, the public engagements that were done on What's Next. I saw the reports, I heard it as an alumni even before I started this role. Just a year ago, I did go onto the thought exchange and look at what was emerging as well. And it was riddled with comments around equity and belonging. So it was no surprise to me that it ended up as a value. And what we've been saying about the equity compass is that it is the plan, the sub-plan that articulates how we will make that value come to life. And so that's specifically how it's being represented. I know that often strategic plans are high level, and each one of these necessarily will have implementation detail in different plans. For equity and belonging value, that is the equity compass. The people plan is clearly part of the Transform the SFU Experience, and the equity compass also underlies the people plan. So we'll keep integrating and making sure all of these are working together to accomplish what it is that we're trying to accomplish.
And we're really mindful, aren't we, Yabom, of the accessibility requirements that are coming down and really trying to work quickly to do some catch up. We have work to do at SFU.
Absolutely. And I should have said in the Equity Compass, thank you, Joey, for the reminder. There is specifically mention of the work that we're doing with the Accessibility Act as one of the priorities that came through, not just through the consultation and the legislation, but clearly from community as well. So yes, it is a priority we're working on.
Fabulous. Okay, we're good. We've got time for a couple more questions here. Okay, Nicole, last I heard there was a wait list of 2,000 students for residents. Holy Toledo. What plans do you have for increasing housing at and around all campuses, including family housing?
Martin, do you want to take this one?
Sure, and I can ask Ramona to also weigh in if she wishes on it as well. No, we certainly have plans afoot. We have phase 2 of the student residence is ready to open on Burgundy Mountain. It's imminent. And we also have phase 3 fully designed almost at this point. We are optimistic that the provincial government is going to be announcing a net new debt program to finance the next phase of student housing. And certainly we're prepared and hopefully first out of the gate to respond to that request. So we're going to continue to build student housing. We have been looking at Surrey. We see that there is demand in Surrey for student housing. We're investigating opportunities there as well. And, you know, one of the things that certainly Dugan has raised is around the family housing and making sure that we have housing that's appropriate for graduate students. And we have to make sure that's part of the mix as we move forward into the future. So some is opening pretty quickly and we're looking to build more. And Ramona, I'll turn to you as well.
I would just say, yes, everything Martin said. The demand is huge. It's actually really exciting to see the uptake. And really the students that want to live on campus have really changed over the years. So, which is also really interesting to see that very, very much as some of our commuting times go up, students from our local areas are really keen to be in our housing. And we know it makes a difference to international students to have places to live on campus. Affordability is a big topic right now for students. So affordable, safe, on-campus housing is the way we want to keep going.
And talk about a way to transform the SFU experience, right? Like we always were kind of referred to as a commuter campus, and our students want to live on campus. They want to be part of a vibrant student life, and that's something that we're really paying attention to on Burnaby Mountain, but we're also beginning to talk about housing in Surrey as well.
Great. And yeah, and it's exciting. My son does live in residence. And what's happening with all the amenities and the incredible things that are happening in the dining center. And like, there's so much going on to really blow up that incredible experience up there. Okay, I think we're gonna have time for one or two more. So we've got a question here. To my impression, the what's next strategy is relatively a high level one. People may have different interpretations and understandings of these headlines. Is there a set plan to minimize miscommunication in the implementation stage?
Yeah, it's such a good point. And these really are fairly large areas. I totally understand that. And it's all about over to the working groups now to articulate plans, to share them with the community, to seek input. And it's going to be iterative. I love the idea that Diane Finegood put in the chat that we need metrics to help us learn how to do better than just focus on outcomes and impacts. And we're learning, you know, as a university, we're trying to kind of, work that muscle a little bit more in terms of, just engagement and learning and sharing and improving. And I think over time, the focus will emerge. Priorities will continue to emerge and we will share them. We make a commitment to continue to share them with the community.
Great. Okay, we've got a hot topic question here. And I hear this all over the place. My family doctor is retiring soon and it's impossible to find one. What's SFU doing to get that med school in Surrey open? Joanne Curry.
everything we can. So this is one of the 3 initiatives in making a difference in for BC. And for some of the areas we say, you know, are there demonstrated needs, or how important is this to the province? And over the last year, there's no question about the importance of the 1 million BC residents that are unattached to a family doctor. So we are submitting a full business case. We've received funding for planning from the province. The first cohort will be in, if all goes to plan, fall of 2026. A tremendously complex project, including accreditation. So we are moving as fast as we can, and the province is very supportive. So that's a really important question that we'll be addressing in our strategic area.
That is great news for all of us that are having a hard time getting the kind of healthcare we need right now. Okay, so I think I'm looking at the time. We've only got a few minutes left, so we're gonna cut it there for questions. And thank you everyone for fantastic questions. And I know there's a few more, and there'll be more rolling in. So there's gonna be a survey that's gonna be sent out to everyone who registered here today, that you'll be able to ask further questions. And the team behind the scenes will make sure we get those questions answered. And I think what I recall is going to happen is this video, along with any questions that haven't been answered, are going to be posted on the dashboard. It's sort of a blog post or a post. We're making sure everybody's questions are answered. And if it's okay, I'm just going to pass it back over to you, Joy, if you have any reflections that have sort of popped out to you, any final comments, and then we're going to, get everybody out of here by 4 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janet. And I want to thank everyone for showing up today, for your questions. And I actually, it's really helped me kind of think through some of the next steps that we need to engage in. Some of the things that I'm hearing is, there's a tension that I think we're experiencing as a community. I think people are concerned about, inflation, budget, et cetera, and the amount of work everybody's doing. But on the other hand, there's an excitement about trying to lean in and make a difference and take on these priority areas. And I do think we can find a middle ground. I think that we need to figure out, how to support people, as Yvonne has said, in their work, how we can align existing activities as best we can with the strategic priority areas. And I've also heard a need to continue to share with the community as plans evolve, continue to have town halls like this, but other communications to talk about how we are moving forward together. And so we'll take that back. I've also heard, and I think there is some interest in helping us with this, and really do count. This is not a strategy for me. This is not a strategy for a few people. This is the university strategy. We are the university. We are SFU. And I think there's great opportunities for all of us to contribute and to be thinking about how to lean in on this work. And I will say that I'm really grateful. I want to indicate I'm really grateful for the co-leads. And I'm also really grateful to Wade and Martin for really helping. Like they're the folks that are also going to help drive this forward. And we asked Martin and Wade to do this. One, Wade as provost plays a key role in really helping us make sure that we are remaining focused on teaching and research at the university. But Martin also plays a key role in helping us think about how we can budget and manage some of these resource issues. So together, they're going to be working to make sure that these teams' work are aligned, that we can move forward together. I appreciate that the bucket areas feel very big, but they will become more granular as we move forward with our activities. We will be known not through the areas we select, but through the activities we engage in. And we will learn along the way. And I mean, I truly believe that a good strategic plan has to be evergreen. And that means that we need to check in and we need to have things evolve and again, learn from the process. So I'll leave it there, Janet. I'm really grateful to you as well and your team for helping facilitate the discussion today. Always a pleasure to work with you.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. 4 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you. 34 participants today. That's a great audience number. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Janet. Thanks, everyone.